Hello everyone, my name is Jennifer and welcome to Best Kept Plans. Today's video is going to be a plan with me for the week of October 10th through the 16th, 2022 using my B5 Archer and Olive notebook. If you're interested in seeing that, please stick around. For this week's spread, I'll be primarily using stamps. I'm pulling in these from Amazon, these circle stamps from Ink Road Stamps, these letters from StudioCalico, these month stamps from Heidi Swapp, these quote stamps from Heidi Swapp, and these large number stamps from Heidi Swapp. First, I'm going to start by pulling out the 3 different circle stamps that I want to use for this week's spread. My idea was basically to cluster 3 circle stamps together at the top of each day of the week and basically utilize them as like a header but also deco. One of the circle stamps that I'm using is basically the outline of a circle, and my thought was to put the date within that circle for each day of the week. I am going to be using 3 different colored Distress Oxides for this spread, Faded Jeans, Speckled Egg, and Pumice Stone. I just like the way that these 3 colors go together. They're not necessarily very fall-esque colors. They maybe are more aligned with like a winter spread, but I just really love this combo and was very compelled to use these colors this week. So first I'm going to start out with putting this kind of messy grid circle stamp down for each day of the week, Monday through Sunday. I am putting them in a little bit of a different spot on each day of the week. I'm not going to have each cluster looking exactly the same. I want them to be a little varied. So I am placing this stamp down in different areas for each day of the week. Once I have these last 2 messy grid circle stickers down, we're going to move on to the next circle stamp that I'll be using. And this one is basically like kind of wavy lines. It doesn't totally look like a circle, and I apologize, I do cut off some of the stamping situations here and there. So as you can see, it doesn't exactly look like a circle per se because the wavy lines are kind of spread out, but I just really liked the wavy line design, so I really wanted to include it in this spread. Just like with the grid circle sticker, or I'm sorry, circle stamp, I am putting it down in kind of different spots on each day of the week so that each of the clusters doesn't look exactly like the one next to it. And the last circle stamp that I'm pulling in is basically like, it's almost like someone took a pen and drew a circle but went over it multiple times. So it's really more of a ring shape. The inside of the circle has nothing in it. I'm using the Speckled Egg Distress Oxide for this one. Again, as you can see, each cluster is looking a little different with regards to where I'm placing the stamps. And like I had said, my goal or my thought process was that this final circle stamp that I'm adding in, which is really more of a ring, is where I'll put the date for each day of the week. I do want to include some deco in that top left corner of the spread, and so basically now I'm going to take all of the 3 circle stamps that I was using and create a little bit of a larger design to utilize as a background for me putting that, we're in the month of October, me putting the week of the year. Now, as you can see, I did kind of drop that grid stamp, unfortunately, when I was putting it down, but I used the ring stamp with the speckled egg to kind of cover that up a little bit, so I don't think it's super noticeable. And really here I'm just kind of expanding out this design up and to the right as I go, just kind of fitting in different stamps where I feel like they make sense. I'm not, I didn't really have like a pre-formulated idea. So it's just kind of like what seemed like it would go where. And I did end up doing like basically like almost 3 stamps of each design, or I did 3 of the ring ones, and then I did only do 4 of the kind of grid messy stamp, and then I really used the wavy stamp a bunch to kind of like make it all feel cohesive together. But now that I have those, that deco kind of cluster put down in the top left corner of the spread, I am going to pull in my narrow, long letter stamps that I usually utilize to put in the week of the year. This is the 41st week of the year, so I am first putting down my 4, hoping to get it down nice and straight, and then I will be pulling in the 1. And again, my goal is always to try and put these stamps down neatly, try and have them be level with each other. I do think that I put down both the 4 and the 1 a little bit crooked this week, but overall I don't think it's very noticeable, and especially like when you're looking at it right now, it doesn't look noticeable at all. But when I was kind of looking at my spread afterwards in a little bit more detail, it is down a tiny bit crooked, but that's okay. I do want to add in the October stamp from Heidi Swapp as well. And I am going to end up coming back and doing that. Not exactly happy with where I placed it, but it is what it is. Right now I'm going to take these tiny number stamps from StudioCalico, and I'm going to go through and stamp in the dates for this week in those in that circle stamp that's more of like a ring shape. So I'm putting down all of the ones first because we are in the teens for this week of October. And so I will say, like, I'm not as familiar with using these small number stamps. These are newer for me, and my spacing, like, my intuition in terms of spacing with them is not that great yet. So I'm definitely end up being kind of like off-centered and stuff when I'm putting these stamps in, um, but it's okay. I think overall in the end it still looks fine, even though they're not maybe like perfectly centered within that circle, or the 1 and the second number are not like exactly lined up perfectly. I think it still works. I think it having a little bit of like off, like an off perfect look to it actually kind of goes with the messy grid and the wavy line stamps in a way. So I'm just slowly making my way through the week, adding in the 5 for the 15th, which is Saturday, and then I'll be adding in the 6 for Sunday, which is the 16th. The last one that I do have to add in is the 0 for Monday, the 10th. So I'll put that down right now. And then once I have now that I have these numbers all down, I believe I'm going to go back to the top left corner of the spread to add in my October stamp. Again, not particularly happy with where I ended up placing this. I thought it would be nice. Oh, I didn't even realize I was cut off as well. I thought it'd be nice to kind of try to tuck it under the 4, and I do think that's a good idea, but there is a messy grid stamp kind of right there, and the color of that messy grid stamp is a little bit darker, and so it ended up being that it's just a tad bit hard to really make out the October. I think if I would have put it up a little higher where the colors of the stamps were a bit lighter, it would have popped a little bit more. Now I'm taking my this little splatter stamp It's a small one. It's not the large one that I tend to use a lot in my spreads and in my reading journal. And I'm basically just putting a splatter stamp down on each day of the week. Not lined up, not perfect, not the same for each day. And then now I'm going into the top left corner of the spread and adding in a few. I wanted three. I was a little confused as to where to put the third one, but I'm going to have it hanging off the page here. And with that circle stamp, or I'm sorry, with that splatter stamp down, I think we're coming to the end of the deco parts of this week's spread. I was contemplating adding in a quote stamp or a couple of quote stamps from that sheet from Heidi Swapp, but I ended up deciding against it. So now I'm just cleaning up a bunch of the stuff that I used for this week's spread. I am going to be adding in some lines to separate each day of the week with my micron. One thing I will say is that my micron is running out of ink, and I kind of didn't realize that. And so you're going to see that I tried going over the lines several times as I'm doing it. And that's because the ink was not very saturated and my lines weren't coming out very even. Well, I wouldn't say even, but they just weren't very saturated. So after I was done with this spread, I definitely ended up having to toss that micron and find a new one. Um, these lines here going vertically were very simple. For my horizontal lines, I did want to make sure that I didn't go over any deco, so you'll see that I'm kind of working around the deco for, the 11th, 12th, 15th, and 16th. That's something that I usually do. I like to work around the deco. I don't like to have ink lines going through the deco. So I'm just filling in those last few lines here. I do go back after I wrote in that line on the 16th and I end up extending it. I kind of fudged up where the deco actually was. But once I fix that, I am all set with this week's spread. Really love the way that this came out. Again, I just like this combo of colors, and I hope you enjoyed this playing with me. As always, everyone, be safe. Bye-bye.